What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Naughty Dog's second game just a little bit. Talk about whether it is Uncharted, The Last of Us, something else. I think for a long time, and you could probably go back to check me even on my own videos, I've really kind of operated in this autopilot assumption that they're doing an Uncharted game as the secondary thing. I think, having the director who left, I believe, to do Marvel's Avengers back in the day, he did Lost Legacy. He's back now. He's been back actually for a while. We know from Neil Druckmann even earlier this year, right, that, it's factually confirmed they are doing more than one thing. And the second game, he's kind of a mentor to it, right? He'll give notes on it, but he's not the director of it. So they're doing something else. We've known it for an okay amount of time. Again, we have kind of employee placements that would seem to indicate they've been working on it for a couple of years now. You can go back many years, actually, I think 2023, for that one ad that showed the girl holding the torch that at the time I thought it was Cassie Drake, and I thought that was my assumption, that was leading, into maybe what would be an Uncharted 5 or just an Uncharted game in general. Fast forward now a couple of years, we still haven't gotten it yet, right? So here we are. And I think, again, like that Uncharted lineage is strong. And I want to talk about, I think, why, to me, that makes a lot of sense, is to go back to Uncharted. We'll talk about that. But now this Last of Us thing is kind of coming back. Neil Druckmann has talked about The Last of Us quite a bit. Season 2 ending, all that jazz. But the way that, in fact, one of the things, right, is that there is going to be more of The Last of Us. And just, after The Last of Us 2, he pitched The Last of Us 3, or they came up with ideas for The Last of Us 3, even though previously he said that there was nothing ever written. Remember, these people lie kind of for a living to kind of mellow people out and make sure we don't get too crazy, and yet here we are. So in my mind, it's one of the two. Would I love a Jak and Daxter thing? Yes. And by the way, I don't think you should discount it 100%. Maybe put that at like 1 or 2%, because, hey, with Astrobot's success and hopefully Insomniac, gets that legitimate next crack at Ratchet and Clank. All of the leaks and stuff suggest that we will get another Ratchet and Clank game from them. Hopefully there is something going on with Sly. Could we see a resurgence of these early to mid 2000 games? Well, yeah, Jak and Daxter being one of them. I think it is possible. It's just such a low likelihood, with Naughty Dog. I think the more likely thing, and because Intergalactic is that next really, really big, obviously new IP, I feel like it's also kind of safe to throw out the idea of another IP. I like a new IP. I'm cool with making new IPs. Like, you need new IPs in order to make them Uncharted's or Last of Us, right? They can't be these hit things unless you make them in the first place. So you should always kind of have this new thing going on. But I just feel Intergalactic is that, right? So you're not going to do that with a secondary team. One final thing to throw out, I believe Shinobi on Twitter, who's a very plugged-in guy, months ago people were talking, and again, I think the assumption is smaller game. Now, he said no to that the second game is a smaller game. So does that mean it wouldn't be a Lost Legacy type thing? Even now with this Last of Us speculation that maybe the second team is doing a Last of Us spin-off game, so it's not just a 10-hour, 5-hour thing. It's it's got to be a legitimate. Now, I'm not going to say no to that. One final thing before I really start to break it down. I want us to get back to an era where these studios, because I don't know if we were ever fully in that era, but we did have a nice little time where Naughty Dog was able to crank out really a game every 2 years. You go Uncharted 1, 2, 3, Last of Us. Those were all within one game comes out, 2 years later you get the next. Even from The Last of Us to Uncharted 4 was 3 years, and then Uncharted 4 to Last was Part 2 was 4 years. So really, for quite a while, this average of 4, 5, 6 years that's been going on recently, Naughty Dog was doing rather well up until probably you could say The Last was Part 2. And then Factions was supposed to kind of break it up so that we weren't waiting so long, and ultimately going to wait now 6-7 years for Intergalactic. That's not a good thing, right? But Factions was supposed to kind of break that up. So, they were capable. A lot of studios were capable. Now they're not. And I would like to get back to this era where, yeah, could you get Intergalactic in 27, and then 28 you get the second game, and then 29 you get a Last of Us Part 3, or 2030 you get could you do something like that? I would love that. I think that's kind of the goal, not just for PlayStation, but the industry. Okay? So let me just say, because obviously I'm a diehard, really both of these franchises. I mean, I think I can say I love Uncharted far, far more than The Last of Us. So there's that biasness, but Uncharted is such a special franchise, and I really feel like as the years go on, people, and this is just me in my little echo chamber, I feel like people miss it, and I feel like it is never a bad time to bring Uncharted back. And I know those are kind of just words, but I really feel like having an Uncharted game now would do wonders, and I think people are ready for it. I'm not saying with Nathan Drake. I like the idea of doing it with Cassie, having Nate be the Sully type presence there. If you want to do a Chloe or Sam thing, you got that avenue. Again, you did that technically with the Lost Legacy. So, you have options there, but I feel like for Uncharted 4 to be the last main installment one, it's going to celebrate 10-year anniversary this May. That's insane, and Lost Legacy, I think, was the year after, so 2017. But to be without an Uncharted game for like 8-9 years is nuts, considering like some of their games have done extremely well, modern day. But you go back, like I think Uncharted 4 is one of the highest selling PlayStation exclusives of all time. I think it reached like 16, 17 million sales. That's incredible, even for back then. I feel like if you had it happen now, could you hit 10, 15, 20 again? I think you could. So I think they're just missing out on opportunity. I just feel like it's there. I feel like they had such a good back and forth of taking lessons they learned in Uncharted 3, putting in The Last of Us, taking the lessons from The Last of Us, putting in Uncharted 4, taking the lessons from Uncharted 4, and eventually making part 2 of The Last of Us. So I feel like that good back and forth could be used now. I mean, selfishly, I do just want to see Nathan Drake come back. So I would make the pitch for an Uncharted. And again, having some of the blood that's there that has done an Uncharted game in the past and did literally Lost Legacy, that obviously, and having the ad, I guess, that I still think that ad was hinting at Cassie. Maybe at the end of the day it wasn't, but I think that's a good idea. The Last of Us thing, I think, simply is, and it's tough because I do think you actually kind of need The Last of Us, whether you like it or not. Like, I think because the show continues, you're going to run out of ways to sell these games for the 700th time. And I will say that as a dig, because I do think it kind of gets ridiculous at a certain point. And I would make that joke or that insult. Kingdom Hearts, of course, one of my favorite franchises of all time, they have found a way to sell themselves 700 times. It's not ideal, but it is what it is, I guess, for all of them. But The Last of Us, with season 3 filming, I think next year, and then that releasing maybe 2027, you don't have anything. An Intergalactic coming out. Like, if you did a Last of Us Part 3, you're not getting it till like 2030. So the show would end. You'd have to end the show. I imagine the original idea with the show was to follow the game. So to eventually do a Part 3 game and then to have the show kind of match it. And then in past interviews, like, it's changed. Recently they've talked about that now they're not going past the game. So like Last of Us 2, that's where it ends. And I really don't think that was the original plan, at least myself. So I feel like Part 3 would be the ideal and the next logical step, and to do it after Intergalactic. But could you convince me that they could do but this is interesting because, again, the idea of, well, it's not going to be a smaller game. Like, I think I could have bought the idea that you would do like an Ellie spin-off game in between 2 and 3, and maybe that would just be the end of Ellie. And not that I would say that's a good thing, but I mean, like, this is maybe just the path they would go. 10-hour story, Lost Legacy type thing, but with Ellie, and you do it. But I will say my opinion has kind of changed on that after seeing that Shinobi thing, because I didn't see that before I thought about this entire thing. If that's true, if they're really not going to do this kind of spin-off smaller game, if it's like 2 legitimate games, I feel like it does make more sense to do Uncharted, to do a legitimate Uncharted without Neil and without that group, and to have it be a separate group. And not that I think a Last of Us wouldn't work without Neil and all that stuff, but I just feel like that wouldn't happen. Neil Druckmann's the creator of that stuff. There's no way. With Uncharted, yeah, he finished it off. Yeah, he was there for a while and he contributed to the Uncharted games. But I mean, like, that was Amy Hennig's thing, right? So I really think he took that, and then somebody else could take that from him. You don't need Neil Druckmann to do an Uncharted game. And I think actually a lot of people would be very happy to not have Neil Druckmann do an Uncharted game. So I don't really care about that. And to be honest, again, I don't really care about the Last of Us side of it either, but I feel like that would be more sensitive, and that would just be something that you're not making a full-scale Last of Us game without him. You can do that with an Uncharted game without him. So I'll still say Maybe it's my biasness. It's my will. I mean, I want it to happen. You know what I mean? I'm willing it into existence. I hope it's an Uncharted game, whether it's an Uncharted 5 or another spin-off or whatever. Just don't do a reboot. Don't nothing stupid like that. Just do, I guess, one of those two, spin-off or an Uncharted 5 with Cassie. That would be totally cool. That's what I'm going to assume that it is. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon's turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.